Okay, hello everybody. Today we're going to talk about Ansible Playbooks, and I just barely introduced them in the last video, but this time we're going to go a little bit further into them because Ansible Playbooks are really the guts of Ansible, and so uh, you know, be understanding how playbooks work and looking at some examples of them, you'll pick them up pretty quickly, but I just want to go through that really quickly and show it to you. So this is the example that we started looking at last time, and I just wanted to show you a little bit more about how it's organized. So first off, this playbook is really divided up into two separate sets of tasks. Each task is assigned to work on different classes of servers. Now, where are these different classes of servers defined? They're defined in the inventory file that you did before. And so, you have 1 or 50 servers listed in the class of web servers. Same for DB servers. You can have 1 in there, you could have 50, you could have hundreds, doesn't matter. But so this is connecting out to the inventory file. And that inventory file is a place where you group your servers according to function, because that's what we're going to be doing. Is we're going to be, doing work on these different servers, and the kind of work that we do on the server depends on the function of the server. In this case, web servers or DB servers. And so, so that's what we got here. And so our first task, install or make sure that Apache is present, better way to look at it. And then the second task is start it. For the DB servers, the first task is make sure that MariaDB is present. And the second task is to start it. And that's all there is to these two different playbooks. The playbooks are broken up into different tasks, and each task has a different name on it. Remember I said that the name is what you see in the output of the Ansible play once you run it. And so whatever you name things is entirely up to you. So the inventory file, another task that you could use is you could think about, how do we disable SE Linux? If SE Linux is enabled on our machines, and in fact, I'm pretty sure it is, then if we want to disable it, how do we do that? Well, the problem is that when you disable SE Linux, you need to reboot the machine to have it affect, stop running SE Linux. And so so how do you make it reboot? Well, you have to run a command. In this case, it's the command reboot, which is located in SBIN. So the neat thing about this one is that we're looking at the command module here. That command module will run any sort of bash commands that you want. And that's what that command is there. SBIN reboot, that's a bash command. And so we're using the command module to do that. Now, what's going to happen when we reboot, we issue the reboot command? Our machines are going to die. They're going to stop, and they're going to come back up. But we don't really know the state, but hopefully it won't be with SE Linux on it. Now, another interesting thing that you could do about this would be to use the check command here. So if you called this this playbook disable SE Linux and reboot.yaml, you might want to see what would happen if you ran this playbook before you actually do run it. And that's where the check command comes in. And that's kind of a handy thing to have. So real world deployment. So what would you do in a real world scenario to using Ansible? And these, I think, are the real strength of these slides, in that Kaiser really knows such things, and so let's look at some of the things that you might want to do. Now, you'll notice that in this little chart here, we have three sets of tasks. We have one common set of tasks, and we have some tasks we want to run on our web servers, and some tasks we want to run on our DB servers. That's pretty normal in that sometimes you're going to want to do standard things to all of your servers, and then drill down into different classifications of servers to do specific things. So in our common servers, we want to disable SE Linux. We want to create a standard directory and maybe install Vim if that's what you want, or copy some files over there, or install a standard file that says this machine is the property of XYZ Corp, and that kind of standard stuff that you want to do to all of your servers. That's a nice reason to have a common set of tasks and then more specific tasks later. So here's our deployment one play, and our hosts in this case is all. Well, that's how you say this would be for your common set of tasks. Your host in this case is all, and that's a keyword, and Ansible knows that to mean all of the machines that are defined in your inventory. And task disable SE Linux. SE Linux has its own module, and it's called SE Linux, and the state equals disabled. Okay, now disabling that will stop SE Linux. I'm pretty sure, but it won't. It will, if the machine reboots, it will come up with SE Linux enabled. I think it's the way that one works. We don't have to worry too much about that one, but if you wanted to, SE Linux is a good topic in and of itself. You're not going to find many companies that don't run SE Linux. We tend to disable it as quickly as possible because it's kind of a pain for us and makes our lives hard, which is no reason not to use it because it's a much more secure environment. But anyhow, so use the SE Linux module, and we call the state disabled. Next, we want to create the My Files directory. Here's the file module. And in the file module, think about it. What kind of things, if you're moving files around or creating files, what do you need to do? Well, first off, you have to give it a path. Where do you want the My Files directory to be? State says, what is this? Is this a file? Is this a link? Is this a hard link? What is it? In this case, our state is a directory. And we need to have owners. We need to have groups. We need to have modes. And so the file module requires all of this additional information for it to work. Now, the last module here is install Vim. Well, installing software is pretty easy. In this case, we're running on Cent machines, so we're using the yum module, and the name that we want to install is Vim, and the state is we want it to be present. So these are our common modules, but you can see we're using three different modules here: SE Linux, File, and Yum. Now, you've seen these plays before. We've got our hosts web servers. We're using the Yum module to install or make sure HTTPD is present. We're starting the Apache web server, and then we're creating a web admin user. And now this one, we're using another module down there. That's the user module, and the name is web admin comment. And of course, that would be in the geckos part of the passwd file, and then the groups that this user is a member of. So three different modules and to get this work done. Now, the one thing that is interesting about this is that Kaiser has rearranged things. The way that he had these typed out before is a little bit different. Is there any, better way or worse way? No, either way will work. Ansible and YAML, because this is really about YAML at this point, is pretty. Ansible's pretty flexible. YAML has its own requirements. If you'll notice at that top, on the top where it says hosts, the dash is in that first position. Then we have a space, then we have hosts, colon, space, web servers. Now tasks, the T in task lines up under the H for hosts. Okay, the hyphen for the install Apache web server lines up with the T again. My only advice to you is find a format that works and then stick with that format. If this format works for you, pay great attention to it, type your stuff in very carefully, and find something that works and stick to it. But that spacing, the indentation, the number of spaces away from the left-hand side, that all matters. Get a format that works, stick to it. And then our DB servers, hosts, we've got 3 tasks for these. We first use yum to make sure that MariaDB server is present. Then we use the service module to make sure that it's started and enabled. And then we're using the user module to create a user called dbadmin, and we're working through that. Now, obviously, there's a lot more stuff that you could add describing your user, but you don't have to. So this is really showing us kind of our almost minimal. Of course, you wouldn't have to have the comment in there, but there is a lot more that you could add to the user module. So copy and run the playbook. So first off, we're getting to the right location where we want to run it from, and then the Ansible minus playbook. That's how you run your playbook. So first you're calling Ansible, then you're saying Ansible. This time we're going to use the playbook. Now our playbook name is playbook1.yml. Now the first thing that he wants to do is to run the check command. And that check command, once again, is check to see if it works and what changes it would make if you ran it. Okay, and then the idea is that when you look at the output of that check command, you can see, is this what we actually want to do? And if it is, then you can go down to that last line, Ansible playbook, playbook1.yaml, and actually run the playbook. And then it would do its work on those nodes. The output of this, and this is the kind of cool part. Remember, we have the tasks in there, and now the play all. This is where we're working on all the machines. That first task is to gather facts. Remember how we talked about how Ansible gathers a whole lot of information on all the machines that it's touching? That's what it does first, and this can take a little while, but all you get back from that is an okay, but there's a text file out there that's got all the facts that describe each one of the instances and how they're configured, what's installed, what kind of processors they have, how much RAM, you name it, it's in there. There's a ton of information in there. Our second task was to disable SE Linux. Here you can see where we see that our web server and our database server were changed. We did something. Remember that it rebooted in there, and I think we just disabled it. Yes, so it disabled it and then it kept on going. Then we go into the play for our web servers and our gathering facts, and our task is install Apache web server and changed is our web server. So that's the name of the machine that was changed. Then we have a play recap at the bottom there. This is, this is not the full amount of stuff that it would show. And we see how many machines were changed, how many were unreachable, how many failed, how many are okay at the end. Useful information as for audit purposes, as well as for keeping track of the success of your playbooks.